Happy Friday, everyone. This is CBC News BC. I'm Benit Brach here in the Vancouver newsroom. Let's get to your top headlines this afternoon. Well, starting with the Liberal leadership race, who's in and who's out. Well, today, BC MP Jonathan Wilkinson has confirmed he will not seek the Liberal leadership. Meanwhile, this morning, Freeland has confirmed that she is entering the race. And candidate Mark Carney also made a campaign stop in Richmond last night, focusing on Trump's tariff threats and affordability in Canada.
I'm not a usual politician because these are not usual times. This is a moment where we need to come together. We need to face these challenges here in Richmond, here in British Columbia, across Canada. It's time to stand up for our country. And most fundamentally, it is time to build.
Federal Liberal Party members will choose their new leader on March 9th. And youth unemployment is on the rise in BC. New data from Statistics Canada says last year, the youth employment rate fell by 2.5 percentage points, continuing a downward trend that began in 2023. Well, one recruiting expert says networking is one way to stand out when applying for a job.
Especially if you may not have the industry experience, you're leveraging different association, maybe your alumni group from your school, and even your volunteering experience to create new networks that you can, again, network both online through LinkedIn or offline at different events that may be able to get you introductions.
Statistics Canada says by last month, the employment rate was 4.4 percentage points lower than its pre-pandemic average. And in the world of soccer, the Vancouver Rise Football Club has announced it signed a star player for its first Northern Super League season. So that's Canadian national team member Quinn. Quinn is a midfielder who has won Olympic gold in 2021 and bronze at the 2016 Rio Games. They say they're excited to play and see up-and-coming players.
For me to be able to play at home, to play in front of my parents when we travel in Toronto, it's just to inspire a new generation of young Canadians. It's really is a dream come true, and so I'm so glad that it's coming to fruition. For all of us Canadians, it's really an exciting time.
Quinn goes by one name and is openly non-binary. And also quite a sad story. So a mother killer whale whose calf died more than 2 weeks ago was spotted recently near Victoria, still carrying the carcass of her newborn. The Centre for Whale Research spotted the whale, also known as J35. Researchers have said the behavior is an apparent act of grief. They say that J35 has lost 2 of her 4 documented calves, and researchers say they are concerned for the mother's health, noting how much effort and energy it takes to carry the young calf. And prepare to bundle up a bit more. So below seasonal temperatures are expected in parts of BC this weekend. Environment Canada says the coldest air mass seen so far this winter is settling across the region, and that temperatures will hit about 2 to 5 degrees below normal, but it won't be as extreme as that bitter cold snap that we saw last January. And you are updated this afternoon. Thanks so much for watching. Stay here with us. BC Today is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Chrystia Freeland is officially in the race for the Liberal leadership. And so far, the battle appears to be a Freeland-Carney showdown. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race? We'll hear from a young Liberal and we'll take your calls. Plus, what does a U.S. ban on TikTok mean for Canadian users and content creators? We'll hear from an expert. And Brian Minter will be by to talk about that cold weather and what it means for your plants. As well, he'll take your questions as always. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Well, the Liberal leadership race is underway with two apparent high-profile frontrunners. Former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland confirmed it this morning, posting on X, "I'm running to fight for Canada." Now, Freeland already has some support in caucus. Liberal MP for Vancouver Centre, Hedy Fry, spoke to the early edition this week.
I'm excited to support Chrystia for leader of the Liberal Party because this is a woman who can hit the ground running. We are facing a huge threat with the tariffs from Donald Trump and his little existential thing about wanting to make Canada the 51st state. This woman has been there, done it. She faced off against him in his first term as president. She won us a free trade agreement. She is just a strong, powerful woman. I mean, when you're in cabinet, you tend to kind of do what the boss asks you to do sometimes. And I think what she did recently showed a lot of courage to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I really can't. I'm disagreeing with a lot of the things that are happening here, so I'm going to leave. But I think her experience, she's written a book on economy, so she's an economist in many ways. She's shown herself to be a very good finance minister in many ways because she understands the issue. But as foreign affairs minister, she was extraordinary.
Well, also yesterday, former Bank of Canada and Bank of England Governor Mark Carney officially announced his campaign. And here's Carney speaking at a fundraiser event last night in Richmond.
I was about to say I'm not a politician. Actually, I think I am a politician. So political advice, welcome. But I'm not a usual politician because these are not usual times. This is a moment where we need to come together. We need to face these challenges here in Richmond, here in British Columbia. We can't control. We can control what we will do. We can come together. We can build the housing we need. We can build the infrastructure we need. We can build the new energy systems we need. We can build the future.
That's Mark Carney at a campaign event yesterday in Richmond. The Conservative Party is already on the attack on these two frontrunners. Leader Pierre Poilievre spoke yesterday in Delta.
After 9 years of Trudeau, Freeland, and Carney being in power, in 2020, Carney started advising Trudeau on economics, right when Freeland became the finance minister. What has been the result of this pact? Well, Canada's per capita GDP, income per person, has dropped more than any other country in that time period. Since 2020, our GDP per capita has dropped more than any other G7 country. That means lower wages and less purchasing power. We've seen $500 billion of Canadian investment pour into the United States to build pipelines, mines, factories, homes, and other infrastructure, creating American jobs with Canadian investment dollars.
That's Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking Thursday in Delta. Now, the MP for North Vancouver and Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson announced this morning that he would not seek the Liberal leadership. Government House Leader Karina Gold has not yet announced her decision on whether or not to jump in the race. That is expected soon. we're asking you, what do you think of the Liberal leadership race? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And we do have a guest coming up in a moment, but I'd just like to take a couple calls right now. Sheena's on the line in Victoria. Hi, Sheena. What do you think of this? Looks like it's a showdown between Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland.
Yes. If the Liberals don't elect Chrystia Freeland as leader, frankly, they're going to cease to exist as a party. They'll go down in flames. They've been struggling for decades to get somebody. They've done all the wrong things. They've gone the celebrity route. That just, was a disaster. Chrystia is absolutely fantastic, and there are so many people who want her. I've been watching for a couple of years now, different things on newscasts and YouTube and different things on, Team Chrystia. And frankly, women in particular are sick to death of voting for men. We've had enough of these arrogant men, mostly white men, going, their whole paternalistic, I know how to look at, I know everything. We're sick to death of them. The track record is terrible. We want a woman. We want Chrystia. And if they don't elect her, they're really, really stupid. Unfortunately, all the backroom machinations that go on in leadership races, people with grudges, if I can't be leader, I don't want you to be leader. It's nonsense. So we'll see what happens, but they've got an excellent candidate.
Okay.
And I hope they follow through.
Sheena, thank you very much for the call. Pete is up next now. What do you think of this showdown, apparently, as it looks right now, between Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, Pete?
I think it's very interesting. I didn't know that Mark Carney has been in power and the Liberal candidate for the last 9 years, as Pierre Poilievre claimed. Was he hiding very carefully in the shadows? I think it's his to lose because there's been no one tied to Justin Trudeau more at the hip than Chrystia Freeland, ex-finance minister, ex-foreign minister, ex-deputy prime minister. And Trudeau and his government has been in the shallow end of the polls for half a year or longer. And essentially, if she gets in, she gaslights just as much as Justin Trudeau. And people are not going to believe that she's going to really change things because, again, she was tight in there for a while. Carney was amazing on the Today Show. I thought he'd be Iggy 2.0, right? Just very bright, but can't communicate to real human beings. So I think it's his to lose. I don't want to see far-right authoritarian Poilievre win, and I would encourage all of your listeners to check out his interview with Jordan Peterson to see how far-right he has moved. So I hope that Carney gets more than the economic stuff. I guess right now it's his strength, and it's negotiating with Trump is really important. But for him to win, he's got to do more than that. We can't have 1 million international students who are allowed to buy homes in a housing crisis and then deal with the housing crisis. You can't win at that.
The challenge is beyond the economy as well. Pete, thank you very much. I just want to note as well, when you say Iggy 2.0, you mean Michael Ignatieff.
Michael Ignatieff.
Okay. All right. Pete, thank you for the call. We're off to the races on these comments. Give us a call. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Joining me right now is Suhana Gill. She's a federal Liberal member and the Kwantlen University Student Council's women's rep and a political science student. Hi, Suhana. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me come on air.
What do you think of this race?
So this race is a chance for us to push what we want to see in Canada. And I feel like it's given a lot of youth, especially, a lot of optimism. And there's many youth that are advocating heavily for what they want to see in this next Liberal leader. Because right now, what we're seeing is a pivotal moment for either the Liberal Party to get its strength back or it to further weaken. And what we're hoping to do is push for policies that are making sure that the futures of the youth are taken care of.
Is there someone you're backing?
Right now, what I hope to see is more of what I want to hear more of what they have to say because we've gotten a good idea of what these two individuals in the front running race are promising, but I'd like to see more. And with Carney, the one thing that it is he has charisma, and a lot of youth do like that he has some optimism. Whereas with Freeland, they want to see a little bit more difference, and they because she's been in Trudeau's shadow for so long, so people want to see her be different and what she brings to the table too. And with Carney, as he's kind of an outsider in politics, he brings a fresh perspective. So, in this leadership race currently, I feel like Carney is more of the popular vote currently among youth, just because he seems like he's fresh ideas that he brings to the table. And also because he was a central banker, he can focus on what matters the most to youth, which is currently the economic affordability in Canada.
Do you think he can overcome that messaging from the Conservatives, though, that he's not a politician, but he has been advising Trudeau, he has been someone involved in those economic plans?
Without a doubt, because the thing is, before he had even announced that he was going to be running, the Conservatives, they were already attacking him. And he hadn't even announced it till yesterday. So it goes to show that he is a strong candidate in this leadership race. And I feel like as soon as he starts his campaign, as soon as he starts talking more about what he wants to see different within the leadership and also Liberal Party in general, it will gain him a lot of support. It's just a matter of how he'll go about it. And it's in these couple of weeks that we will be seeing. So it's so important that we stay engaged and ask the important questions that need to be asked and advocate for what we want to see.
What do you think young voters, you talked about the economy. What is it that will get young voters engaged?
So back in 2015, when Trudeau was elected, the big thing was more for climate change, inclusivity, that kind of stuff, more socially. But now what we've seen is a shift, and right now it's more inclined towards the economy, more jobs, affordable housing, and overall just a better future for the youth to build a strong generation for themselves. And so what we hope to see is somebody that is able to stabilize the economy in ways where we can see a future in Canada, because Canada is one of the best countries to live in. And so what we would want to see is somebody who has a strong plan, that's somebody who has a solid idea of which direction we can go in to make sure that the youth have jobs and are able to buy homes and have a future for themselves here.
Suhanna, very good to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Suhanna Gill is a federal Liberal member and Kwantlen University Student Council's women's rep and a political science student. And we're taking your calls. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race? What do you think of this showdown between Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney so far? We've already heard that Jonathan Wilkinson will not run for the Liberal leadership, and Karina Gould, the government House leader, Liberal House leader, is still yet to make an announcement. Okay, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 are our phone numbers. Mike in Kelowna, hello. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race?
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. I personally believe that Chrystia Freeland shouldn't have a shot at being an opposition leader or the Prime Minister, because I feel like she's walked away from us during a fight that we could have really used her, and she was still empowered to change things. And going toe-to-toe with Trump, kind of needs somebody who's not going to get pushed around or just leave the room frustrated. We need someone who can go toe-to-toe. I believe that's Mark Carney. And at the very least, if the Liberals don't get voted on the next election, I believe he'd be a better opposition leader to keep Poilievre in check. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for your 2 cents. Carrie is up next in Surrey. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race, Carrie?
I actually think this is a very exciting time to almost push the button for Liberals 2.0. I'm actually fans of both Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, and I'm excited for Canadians to hear about both of their resumes. We've only heard about, with Mark Carney, how he was an advisor to Justin Trudeau, but we have not really started talking about how he was instrumental in Canada avoiding the 2008 housing crisis. He also turned the economy of England right around. He also prevented Ireland from going into bankruptcy, which is incredible. And then you look at Chrystia Freeland, if you look at how she handled the NAFTA negotiations, how she Donald Trump, how she was even before she was an MP, where her history background is dealing with the uber rich. She's got a book called Plutocrats, which will help us, be instrumental in dealing with not only Donald Trump, but the Elon Musks and the Mark Zuckerbergs I just think this is a very exciting time, and we need to put Trudeau behind us. We need to look at how we're going to handle Donald Trump right now, how we're going to turn our economy around, and how are these two individuals going to do it.
Carrie, thank you so much for the call. Sandy is up next now in Vancouver. Hi, Sandy. What do you think of the Liberal leadership race?
Well, I think two of the two top contenders are both very strong, but I think Chrystia Freeland has too much baggage, and but she's got super smarts, like your last guest or your last caller just said, and I have a lot of respect for her. But Mark Carney, I think, would be really solid and could take it to Poilievre. And I think people are looking for a centrist place to park their votes. Certainly I am. And my Poilievre and Trump, the two of them, I mean, I think he'd do really well in both cases. And the last thing I want to say going forward is I want to hear the media asking Poilievre about his climate change plans in a consistent, persistent way. Because when he goes on about carbon tax, this and that, there is no alternative. He wants to ram through pipelines and one thing and another, and I really think it's important to pin him down on that, because obviously climate change is real, and both of the front runners here and Karina Gould, the Liberal Party believes in finding solutions for climate change. So you got to pin him down on that, because he's a slippery one. And it's got to be persistent, because Canadians have a right to know.
Sandy,
thanks so much.
Thank you very much for the call. John is up next in Duncan. Hi, John. Your thoughts on Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney battling for the Liberal leadership?
Yeah, hi there. It's a little bit off topic. I know that the Deputy Prime Minister is not actual elected, or it's not really an office, but it should be. This time of our turmoil in this country, instead of wasting all this taxpayers' dollars and money, time, effort, when our country needs good leadership, we're having a ridiculous race. She should have just been put into that spot. I think she would do really well, by the way, but she should have literally just become the Prime Minister as soon as Trudeau stepped down. Mark Carney, unless I'm wrong, he's never been elected. And I don't think whoever becomes Prime Minister, I think, is going to be very short-lived anyway. So it really doesn't matter. But in some ways it does, because with Trump's inauguration, that person is going to have a pretty tough go. But I wish that Poilievre wasn't even running. That guy won't answer a question directly. Every time he's asked a question.
Okay. John, thank you very much. I think our line just cut there with John. Tony is next in Vancouver now. Lots of people wanting to comment on the Liberal leadership race. Hi, Tony.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd just like to say that the Liberal Party is literally a waste of time. They put Canada into this situation that we are in. They created all these problems that we have, from immigration to the housing problem, to the dealing with Trump. Everything is created by them, and now they're going to pretend to solve the problems that they created. Regardless who wins the leadership, Liberal convention, whatever it is, it's going to be gone anyways. The Liberals are gone. They just failed completely to Canada, to the youth of Canada, to the women of Canada, to the men of Canada. Everybody has been failed by this government, Liberals. And I love Canada so much, and thank you for having your time of the day to give me my opinion. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you for your call, Tony. And our final caller is James in Nanaimo. What are your thoughts on the leadership race at the Liberal Party, James?
Well, I've been a Liberal since the 60s until 2019, and I am very disappointed that what I'm seeing so far is a Liberal Party that seems to be intent on staying well left of center to the traditional role of the Liberal Party, which is more along the Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin lines. And frankly, I find myself, as I say, I didn't leave the Liberal Party left me. And until I hear a real distinct move back to the middle, and also a move away from playing this ridiculous game of alienating Alberta as the bad guy in Confederation, I don't know if I can vote Liberal again.
James, thank you so much for your call. Really appreciate everyone who called in to weigh in on this. And you can email us some more, bctoday at cbc.ca. Again, the news today that Chrystia Freeland, in a tweet, confirmed she is running for the Liberal leadership race, for the Liberal leadership. And this comes a day after Mark Carney announced officially that he's running. And so far, we know that Jonathan Wilkinson has just announced as well that he's not running, and waiting for word for an announcement from Karina Gold. It's now 12:26. Lots of emails coming in on this as well. Mark, we have an email here from Scott who writes, Mark Carney's expertise and vision are exactly what Canada needs, yet the Liberal Party risks sidelining him. A new leader is likely to lose the next election, and Canadians might unfairly dismiss Carney as a future leader because of it. Let's not waste his potential. Carney deserves a real chance to lead. Norman writes, both Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland have cynically come out towing the Poilievre line against the carbon tax. This speaks volumes about their hypocrisy and willingness to sacrifice integrity for expediency. My wish, unlikely as it is, would have a leader who has proven her courage in the face of bullying, and that would be Jody Wilson-Raybould. Anne writes, the choice of anyone but Poilievre has become easier. Thank you to both these two candidates who are running. Either will be great. Mina writes, I am not a member of the Liberal Party, but I am a feminist. I listened to Carney yesterday. He would get my vote. He is easy to listen to. Thank you for your emails. You can keep sending them to us, bctoday@cbc.ca. And we'll keep putting them together for you. And coming up, of course, in the next half hour here on the program, it is a Minter Friday. So we're going to hear from Brian Minter. He has some advice on what to do with your plants as the temperatures dip. We've had quite a cold winter so far, and it continues to be so throughout this weekend at least. So we're going to hear how to take care of our plants. And coming up in just a moment, we're going to hear about this incoming ban on TikTok in the United States and what it means for Canadians. In other big news today, the Supreme Court in the U.S. upheld a federal law that requires TikTok to either be sold by its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, or be banned by Sunday. And it's all to do with national security concerns regarding TikTok's data collection. Joining me now is Andy Barrier, a tech and digital lifestyles expert. Hi there, Andy.
Hi, Michelle.
What is the reaction you're hearing?
You know, Michelle, I just want to know if this was coincidence that the TikTok ban happens on President Biden's last day and the day before Trump is inaugurated. It just seems just like a movie almost that this is happening, because essentially President Trump is inheriting this ban. And really, Michelle, nobody really knows what he's going to do, because he's changed his mind on TikTok before. And I don't think anybody can predict what is going to happen on Monday once he is inaugurated into the office.
Right. Is this actually it for TikTok? What are Canadian content creators, what are they worried about?
Well, if you look at what Canada, as the government of Canada has been doing with TikTok, they've been really watching what's happening in the US. And I think now that this ban is going to go into effect, we have to, as Canadians, especially as TikTok creators and content creators, are going to have to ask questions to the federal government. What are you going to do? But as we know, Michelle, the government is kind of in disarray right now. And so I think they're going to try to take their time on this. But for the creators, my advice for those that are on TikTok is to already try to migrate that audience to a different platform. Because if that ban stays in effect in the US, I think it's only a matter of time before it will trickle down into Canada.
Really? Can you just elaborate a little bit on what a ban in the US would mean for someone who is a content creator on TikTok here in Canada?
Yeah, so when this ban happens tomorrow in the US, basically it will go dark. So all the US TikTok creators, content creators, are not going to be able to post new content. What we don't know, Michelle, is how is that going to look? Are they still going to be able to open the app and not update it? Or will TikTok completely shut it down in the US? Now, it still will be available in Canada. So what Canadian content creators might see is a surge of people, finding new creators to follow since they can't follow people in the U.S. But if you look at the long-term game of this, I think that it's inevitable if that ban, holds up in the U.S., that it will trickle to Canada. Now, if Trump overrides it, then TikTok might survive. But either way, the government needs to educate Canadians on what the dangers are with TikTok because they don't allow it on government-issued devices. And at that time, they had the opportunity to educate us, but they never did. And since that day, Michelle, I have been wondering, what do you know that I don't know, that I speculate, but I don't know? And I think the government should be more transparent about that.
So you think there are legitimate concerns about security and data with regard to TikTok?
Absolutely. I have talked to cybersecurity experts that have worked for the Department of Defense in the U.S. And I always ask them, I'm like, what is the issue? What is the main issue that you have with TikTok? And for them, it was that ByteDance, the parent company, can choose what you see, the kind of content that you're seeing. It's almost, just imagine your local newspaper, your small town newspaper, and the editor is from China and he has close connections to the Chinese government. Nobody would allow that. But essentially what you see on TikTok, another company is deciding based upon engagement, what are you going to get engaged with? But the concern was if they wanted to sway an opinion one way or another, say during an election, you would see certain content where other people would see other content based upon their intent. And that has been the big national security concern. We have to remember, TikTok has been banned in India for 5 years, and that's their neighbor. And again, this is more information that as Canadians, we need to know what are these big national security concerns, because the amount of data TikTok users give when they use the app is astronomical. And if people knew, I think they would second guess about, using TikTok as a news source and as content creation, avenue.
Just very quickly then, you talked about migrating. Are you thinking about Red Note? Should people really be looking to another app?
Yeah, see, this is the problem. It's like, where do you go right now? And Red Note, this is another Chinese app, except this one is still censored by the Chinese government because the TikTok that we use in North America, that's not available in China. They have their own version from ByteDance, but the government can censor that in China. So, there's time limits on young kids, how much time they can use social media in China and the kind of content they see. You'll see more science and education content, whereas in North America, they have dancing videos, cat videos. So, again, most Canadians don't know this. And I think if they knew that, Michelle, they would second be like, do I really want to spend time on this app? If the Chinese government's not even allowing their own citizens to use a similar type of app.
Okay, we'll look to see where people go to watch their dancing cat videos next. Andy, thank you so much for this quick reaction.
Thanks, Michelle.
Andy Barrier is a tech and digital lifestyles journalist, and much more to come, of course, as we watch what does happen to TikTok come Sunday and come Monday as well, just the day after this ban is supposed to take place. It's 12:34 now, and coming up is Brian Minter. Right now, though, let's pause for a CBC News update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. North Vancouver MP Jonathan Wilkinson says he won't be running for the leadership of the federal Liberals. Wilkinson, who is the energy minister, says stepping aside from his cabinet position would not best serve Canadians at this critical time. Meanwhile, former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has announced she will be in the race to replace Justin Trudeau, joining 4 others, including former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. 2 people are in hospital with smoke inhalation after fire destroyed a complex on Penelakut Island last night. 4 families have been displaced. There's no word on a cause. And Environment Canada says BC's South Coast will see its coldest temperatures yet this season over the weekend. Meteorologist Lisa Irvin says temperatures will hit about 2 to 5 degrees below normal on the South Coast and in the southwestern interior. though it will be colder in the east. And now the BC forecast on the north coast, mainly sunny this afternoon with a high of 3. The temperature falling to -13 with light snow and strong winds in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of -3. Highs from -3 to 0 with lots of sunshine this afternoon in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 2. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, sunny this afternoon with highs around 5 degrees. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Bundle up.
Yes, getting chilly.
Rob, thank you.
Yeah.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. This is BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you this afternoon. Yes, it is going to be a cold one this weekend. We're going to hear more from Brian Minter about that. And later this afternoon here on CBC Radio 1, here's what's coming up on the Coast.
Hi, Michelle. Coming up on the coast today, I will once again be filling in for Gloria Makarenko, and I'll have a very special guest joining me. The pride of Ladysmith, BC's very own Pamela Anderson, is back home to talk about her new movie, The Last Showgirl, and she's going to join me in studio. We'll not only talk about the movie, which is generating a lot of buzz, and herself generating a lot of Oscar buzz, but we're going to touch on what it is like to age in the spotlight and the changing way that women are looked at and viewed in society. That, of course, coming up on the coast starting this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and I hope you'll be listening.
Amy, thank you very much. Really looking forward to hearing from Pamela Anderson today. You know, she's really made a lot of waves in media lately, going through, obviously with this new film, but also a new look that she's been showing and really being an example of someone who is aging gracefully and embracing it in all its glory. Really looking forward to Pamela Anderson, kind of a Canadian icon there. So Pamela Anderson this afternoon on the Coast. Brian Minter is here with gardening advice for you. And as always, to take your questions, our number is 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And Brian joins me now from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hi, Brian and Burr.
Okay, Michelle, this is not even a burr. This is just a little bit of a warm-up for potential cold spells. Can I remind you that this time last year, we were very close to -25 in the Eastern Valley.
Oh, really?
Did incredible
oh my God.
damage to, this is really a very good thing that's happening in terms of all our plants because, it's been quite mild this January, beautiful weather, which we've really enjoyed. But the situation is that plants are now growing. If you look at some of the buds, things are starting to swell and growth on some of the broadleaf evergreens is beginning. And we don't want that. Because, Michelle, until we get in the lower Fraser Valley, upper Fraser Valley, and the coast, until we get really to the latter part of February, we're not safe from a cold spell. I remember as a young kid having 4 feet of snow at the end of February. And, so it can happen. But anyway, keep your fingers crossed. But this is wonderful that this is happening right now. And just going to give a couple of ranges here. If we have like -1 to -4, that's really not a problem. That would be traditional cold. And even the warmer zones like -7 or zone 7 and zone 8, that's acceptable to get a little bit of frost. That's a good thing. When we get to -5 and -8 and so on, then we want to take some concerns about mulching our roses, making sure we put frost blankets around a lot of our more tender plants and so on. That's when we, and that's really not bad. That's acceptable in terms of not doing too much damage. But then you get into -10 and -15, and that's where we are right now in the Peace Country up north. We're used to that. The plants are used to that. So perfectly okay. Our only caveat is if we happen to get the outflow winds, and you know how outflow winds affect temperature, if we do get those, and to what degree, that's the only thing. But as it looks right now, I'm quite pleased. I think this is a wonderful thing. But a couple of reminders in terms of pruning. Because we're getting a little bit of a chill, I would hold off on pruning until we get through this cold spell. Just around the home garden and so on. Roses in particular, we always wait until the last hard frost, about the end of February, early March, before we do that. Because when you make a cut, the frost, if it gets cold, can go into the roses and cause more dieback. Any folks that have things that they love to live outside. I see a lot of Dracaena palms in the Vancouver area, some of the beautiful phormiums. In what we're getting, they're going to be fine, but beyond that, you have to watch it. But in vegetables, a lot of folks right now, Michelle, are doing winter vegetables, have kale in their garden, and carrots and root crops and so on. For the coastal areas and for the valley, we've got the whole bunch growing in our field. I'm not the least bit worried about it at these temperatures. I think we're great. And essentially, if you're worried about your roses because we lost so many last year into tree roses, let's put some mulch around them, cover the bud unions up, and make sure the tree roses have a wrap around the stem because the bud union's up on top. The one thing, Michelle, a lot of folks are very concerned about, the bulbs are coming up. Oh my gosh, those crocus and snowdrops are above ground. This is nothing. They don't mind that at all, so no problem. Okay. And the last thing is really the hydrangeas and so on, the macrophylla types with the big fat buds. At these temperatures, we're okay, but if we happen to dip, protect those bud unions, whatever you need to do. And always a caution for folks who do have containers on their deck, especially facing east and north where the outflows will kind of come. Maybe put a frost wrap around if we get to beyond the -4 degrees. Up to -4, -5, we can sustain that, but beyond that, we'll give them a wrap. So I think overall, this is a good thing that's happening, just a little bit of caution, and keep your eye on those outflow winds because they're the ones that cause that little bit of a problem we really don't want to have.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it for now. Just
We
keep
will,
an
yeah.
eye. Be
Yep,
careful.
keep an eye.
Love it. Brian Minter is with me, and he's taking your questions. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Kirsty is calling us from Vancouver. Hi, Kirsty.
Hi there. Hi, Brian.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
How can we help, Christy?
So we have a place on Gambier Island, and we have a south-facing garden that is sort of terraced down to the water. And the thing is, we've got blueberry bushes there and raspberry canes, but they really don't do well there at all. And I was wondering, is it just not a great place to plant them on, so close to the water? Or is it because we're not doing something right?
Yeah, Christy, no, it's a very good question. What I'm worried about, and the Sunset Western Garden book, which is probably one of the authorities in terms of gardening and knowledge and plant identification, identifies plants that are tolerant of salt spray and ones that are not. And that's really the big issue. As the winds would come off the ocean facing south, bringing some of the salt spray along with it, I think, Christy, that might be the biggest issue. I would keep an eye on that. But just in case, I wouldn't do much this year. What I would love you to do is to get some fine bark mulch. Fir would be good, and work it in amongst the blueberries and work it in amongst your raspberries as well, and maybe a bit of something like sea soil or whatnot. Let's really give them a little extra organic nutrient right off the bat, and any time now would be great for that, but also giving them a good feed. And we always talk about the almost organic 10, 15, 19 with the micronutrients in it. I think if we get that soil changed a wee bit and upgraded in terms of organics and put some really good 10, 15, 19 nutrient around them, and that would do that when the new growth starts in the spring. Christy, let's try that this one more year. And by doing those two things, and they're still not doing well, then it is the salt spray. Otherwise, we might just be able to sneak through and get some blueberries and raspberries this year.
Oh my gosh. Kirsty, thank you very much. And first of all, that sounds lovely to have those plants terracing down from your property on Gambier Island to the water. Let's just make sure that they do thrive and that you find something that does well. That's quite the idyllic picture in my mind, Brian. Thank you for the
yeah.
call. Amy is up next now in Surrey. Hi, Amy. What's your question for Brian Mincher?
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
I have two questions about timing of pruning. You mentioned about the rows that hold off till this cold spell is stabilized. How about fruit trees like apple, pears, and we have a Japanese members like apricot. Should I wait? I was going to just do it today because it's such a beautiful day.
Amy, I'm not going to stop you. Okay. The roses, we always wait until the last hard frost for pruning roses. So we're a month away before we even tackle the roses, and they're happy the way they are. But on your fruit trees right now, no, perfect time to get out. Your weather's ideal to do it, even if we have a cold spell. I mean, other than the terrible situation in the Okanagan last year, normally because there's so many trees in the Okanagan, they have to prune all winter long. So Amy, spend your afternoon enjoying the outdoors and pruning your fruit trees. I think it's a great thing and great timing as well.
Amy, thank you very much. You can head on out, put on those gloves and pick up the shears. I was wondering that when we were talking earlier about, just what a lovely afternoon it is, perfect for some gardening. So there you go. You can still do it for your fruit trees. Okay. Althea is our next caller now. And again, our numbers are 604-669-3733. 1-800-825-5950. And you can also just hit pound 690 on your phone. Let's head to North Vancouver and say hello to Althea.
Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful blue sky, and so I think gardening. My question: I have a very old rhododendron tree that we rescued. It's got about 5 upward stems. It's about 7.5 feet tall, and it's got lots of green happiness on the very end branches, but nothing below really. What should we do?
Althea, really good question. And pruning is in order, but only when the new growth starts to come very vigorously. Usually in rhododendrons, the blossoms come first, and then when the blossoms are finished, the new growth starts to come out. And that's when we want to prune our rhodos. And because it's 7 feet high and not having much foliage below that, I would take a chance and prune really quite hard, maybe about halfway down, Althea. And if you look on the stems of rhodos, they have like little knuckles on our fingers. They have what is called nodes. And as long as you prune above the nodes, you'll find that a little bit of growth will come out this year. And then as it starts to grow, it'll increase and give you a beautiful plant. But wait until the new growth comes out. And, even though you've cared for it and looked after it, I think at this point, a hard pruning will make all the difference in the world and give you the compact rhododendron that eventually have beautiful flowers. It's the way to go, honestly.
Wonderful. Is there anything I should feed it in particular?
And that's a very good question, because once you take all the leaves off the plant, or a lot of them, and you're pruning hard, it's not going to be producing food. It doesn't need as much food. But when the new growth starts to come, that's when I would put around it. Instead of using a roto food, I would use something like a time release fertilizer, like a 14-14-14, because it's well balanced and it's more concerned about giving some nitrogen on that plant to get those leaves coming back. So 14-14-14 when the new growth really starts to come after pruning.
Wonderful. Big thanks.
Thank you. And
Thank
Althea,
you.
did you call leaves green happiness?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay. Green happiness.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's going to stick with me. We have an email from Barbara at Paradise Island. I was lazy in the fall and didn't get around to planting my garlic. Is it too late? Too late, rather. And she's writing from Black Creek.
Okay, no, good question. A lot of folks have not planted their bulbs yet. They never got around to, things happen, Christmas happens and so on.
Exactly.
But no, it's a great time to plant them as soon as you possibly can now. If it's just wait till after this weekend, it's going to go back to our normal temperatures. But no, get them planted as soon as possible. Remember, for garlic, raised beds if you possibly can. They need the warmth up there, and really good soil. And adding a bit of mushroom compost into the mix really helps the garlic a lot. So no, great time to do that, and the sooner the better.
You're not lazy, Barbara. I love it, Brian. You were talking about up in the piece, temperatures down to minus 25. Of course, that's just the norm. I love it. I'm getting trolled right now a little bit on email. Joseph wrote us, could be worse. We're talking about minus 4 in Metro Vancouver. And he writes, bah, ha, ha, ha. In Edmonton, minus 23. Feels like minus 30 overnight. Saturday, minus 25. And Sunday, minus 34. All right. Fair enough. I will not complain. I wasn't complaining anyway, but yes, we are very, very fortunate here in the Lower Mainland. It's just chilly. It's not actually super cold.
Exactly, it is an ideal it's an ideal warm up just in case we do get colder weather. This will help our plants more than we can imagine. So it's good.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you very much for that email, Joseph. Fair point. Helena is calling us now from Trail. Hi, Helena.
Hi. I'm calling because I did hear your bit about helping blueberries and roses on the island, but what about up here in Trail? We have no snow in Trail, but go a few feet up the mountain and there's quite a bit of snow. So does the same apply to our area?
Yeah, no. And again, at the beginning of the program, I sort of gave temperature zones where you have to be a little more careful the colder we get. But that's a really good question. But Helena, as we I think as a precaution, even our roses, which are non-budded anymore, the traditional roses that are on their own roots, I'd like to see about a foot of mulch over top of them. And by mulch, either a fir hemlock sawdust or bark mulch, something that's going to protect the bud unions and the rose bushes down lower. That should be sort of standard fare. And I would really do that. If you haven't done it, let's get that done. Too many roses were lost last year, and that's my biggest concern. Yeah.
And what about the blueberries?
Blueberries, you shouldn't have to worry. Blueberries are about as hardy as a peach, to give you some relevance out there. The Okanagan, exactly, in a lot of the province, peaches don't need to be covered. They're really tough and resilient. So I wouldn't worry at all about the blueberries. They're going to be absolutely fine.
Okay, because normally we have snow on the ground, a little bit.
I know.
But we have none this year, so.
Yeah, but honey, if you are concerned about the blueberries, sow some bark mulch around them. They love that. The best thing you can possibly get them. That'll just give them that little extra protection.
Okay, thank you very
go.
much.
Okay,
Helena,
thank you.
Thank you very much for the call from Trail. Our number again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 to get your gardening question in to Brian Minter. It is a beautiful day. So if you're planning to do any gardening, and head on out and soak up those rays, now might be a time to give our gardening expert here a call. Natasha writes an email. I recently moved from an apartment to a townhome, and it has a front and back garden. There are lots of plants and various things growing, but since we moved in, a lot of it has dropped its leaves. It's being pruned back by previous owners or simply hibernating for winter. I have no clue what the garden will reveal when spring comes, and I want to make the garden my own. So my question is, where do I begin? How do I figure out what's there, what to do with it, and how not to mess up?
Yeah, and where was Natasha emailing from?
That is a really good question. Let me see if she's written down where she is writing from.
Because it does make a bit of a difference, but I'm assuming it's somewhere in the Lower Mainland here. And
Victoria, pardon me, Victoria.
Yeah. At this time of year, virtually most garden stores have pruning seminars and bringing people in who are really good at pruning and share knowledge and so on. We're bringing in some folks tomorrow, matter of fact, who do an outstanding job. But first of all, we need to know what the plants are, because it does make a difference. But in Victoria, you're lucky because, you don't have the severity of the cold. But we need to identify what the plants are. Then we have a better sense of, when and how hard to prune. But there is time just yet. But as I would look in the, websites of various garden centers to see if they are doing pruning seminars, but just listening and understanding what some of the folks who really know what they're talking about, that'll help an awful lot. And again, the Sunset Western Garden book, I always recommend as one of the best ones. It has a really good section on pruning to give you a really clear idea in terms of what you should do. But I guess the most important thing, Natasha, we're not in a rush right now. There's plenty of time. You haven't really till the latter part or end of February to get down to the point where you should do some pruning. And many types of plants don't want to be pruned until we get into the growth cycle, because the one thing about pruning is if we don't know what we're doing, we often cut back a lot of plants. The flower buds are set. So you're going to take off all those flowers and the fruits as well. So at this point, go easy, just observe and watch. And get a few lessons, get a book like the Sunset Western Garden book or books on pruning. It'll just be so helpful for you. It's great because she wants to learn and personalize her garden, which is the big thing right now. And so go slow, watch, listen, observe, and I think you'll find it'll be a lot better for you just to get the sense of when things should be done.
Yeah, and Natasha, good luck to you. It's exciting to have this project at hand for you. Val is our next caller now in Castlegar. Hi, Val.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I may have lost a few of the sentences and calls, but I was wondering, since we also in the Kootenays have no snow in our backyard, I'm a little worried and really wanting fruit on my trees, especially peaches. Is there anything I should be doing so that they don't dry out? It doesn't dry out from windburn. Should I actually move some snow around?
Yeah, Val, no. You know what? The predictions are, and this is for the Okanagan, where they had such a tragedy last year. They are fine. They would take our normal winters without batting an eye. We just had exceptionally cold last year. These trees are hardy for Castlegar, hardy for the Okanagan. They're Zone 5. And from what we're looking at in a forecast right now, you should not have to worry a bit about it. So you don't need to wrap things, or, with the type of weather we're having right now, which is forecast, you're going to be absolutely fine. So please don't worry. Your fruit trees are going to be great.
Val, thank you very much. That makes things easier, doesn't it? And it's such a relief to not have to deal with the same kind of issues that we did have to deal with. Hopefully, knock on wood, so far in this season anyway. Val, thank you for being our last caller here to Brian Minter. And Brian, what does the weekend look like for you?
Oh, amazing. It's a time of year where we're teaching people how to prune and when to prune. This is such a great thing. And folks just love it. But it's gaining knowledge in your garden, and that's the great thing. And the best thing you can do, I think if you're worried about it, go and prune anyway, because you'll learn. By making a few mistakes in pruning, the trees and plants will recover nicely, but you learn so much by just getting out and doing it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Mistakes are okay. Have a wonderful weekend, Brian.
You too, Michelle. Thank you.
Brian Minter, he'll be back in 2 weeks.